Established in 2005 as a result of a complex merger, Walter Sisulu University has now positioned itself as an institution of higher learning that is committing itself to harnessing socio-economic, cultural, and ideational assets within the Eastern Cape context, expanding to an African context, and is daring enough to touch the international shores. We have over 30,000 students, making us the biggest institution in the province. This university over the years has collected a rich identity and legacy through its historical role as an institution of access for the disenfranchised, to now becoming an institution pursuing excellence through its commitment to creating and implementing carefully designed student development initiatives and an empowering curriculum that ensure Walter Established in 2005 as a result of a complex merger, Walter Sisulu University has now positioned itself as an institution of higher learning that is committing itself to harnessing socio-economic, cultural, and ideational assets within the Eastern Cape context, expanding to an African context, and is daring enough to touch the international shores. We have over 30,000 students, making us the biggest institution in the province. This university over the years has collected a rich identity and legacy through its historical role as an institution of access for the disenfranchised, to now becoming an institution pursuing excellence through its commitment to creating and implementing carefully designed student development initiatives and an empowering curriculum that ensure Walter Sisulu University graduates are able to access the highest echelons of society. Walter Sisulu University Vision 2030 views academic excellence as the dynamic interplay of talent, vision, and creativity born out of a new attitude and a fresh commitment to position the university for excellence. We boast of over 150 programs that have seen the university respected across sectors through its illustrious alumni. This is Walter Sisulu University, a university in pursuit of excellence. Established in 2005 as a result of a complex merger, Walter Sisulu University has now positioned itself as an institution of higher learning that is committing itself to harnessing socio-economic, cultural, and ideational assets within the Eastern Cape context, expanding to an African context, and is daring enough to touch the international shores. We have over 30,000 students, making us the biggest institution in the province. This university over the years has collected a rich identity and legacy through its historical role as an institution of access for the disenfranchised, to now becoming an institution pursuing excellence through its commitment to creating and implementing carefully designed student development initiatives and an empowering curriculum that ensure Walter Sisulu University graduates are able to access the highest echelons of society. Walter Sisulu University Vision 2030 views academic excellence as the dynamic interplay of talent, vision, and creativity born out of a new attitude and a fresh commitment to position the university for excellence. We boast of over 150 programs that have seen the university respected across sectors through its illustrious alumni. This is Walter Sisulu University, a university in pursuit of excellence.
Morning, graduates. Just one or two things that I want to add to that speech. When you come up this morning, there's some yellow cards that we gave you and asked you to complete. Please bring these yellow cards as you come up on stage this morning. It is very, very important that you bring these yellow cards with. Someone will collect them from you just before you ascend the stage. Thank you so much. Enjoy your graduation ceremony with us.
Good morning once again, graduates and the parents. Please be reminded to go back to your seats and remain there up until the end of the ceremony. That is so that we can support our fellow graduates. We are about to start. May we all rise and honor the academic procession as they make their way into the hall. Choir, please lead us in Nongause.
What is obuyi ngomozo bawo langa linga shone fume bonkebe ngakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele bo bafume bonkebe ngakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele bo bafume bonke bengakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi kodwa uphandini likano sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi kodwa uphandini likano ngqawuse bavume bonke bengakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele bo bavume bonke bengakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi kodwa uphandini likano sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi kodwa uphandini likano sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi kodwa uphandini likano ngqawuse bavume bonke bengakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele bo bavume bonke bengakholwa bo ukuthi babulala imfuyo bo imfuyo bayichazisile bo nabaphansi bebahlonele sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi bo uphandini likano sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi bo uphandini likano sonke izotshisa bo ikhona zamadoda zibesala bebamba ngezansi bo bayixabisile nabaphansi bebahlonzile zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi bavile bonke bengakholwa ukuthi babulala imfuyo bayixabisile nabaphansi bebahlonele bavume bonke bengakholwa ukuthi babulala imfuyo bayixabisile nabaphansi bebahlonele zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi bavile bonke bengakholwa ukuthi babulala imfuyo bayixabisile nabaphansi bebahlonzile zonke izotshiswa iinkomo zamadoda besala bebamba ngezantsi ukanti nilikanongqazi
Good morning. Molweni. By virtue of the powers vested in me as the Vice Chancellor and Principal of Sisulu University, I declare this congregation open for the conferring of degrees and awarding of diplomas and certificates. You may be seated.
Molweni, Dumelang, Sanborn, good morning. Igama lami ndinguSinolo Nokutywa. Ndingumntu ocelweyo ukuba ke namhlanje ndinivulele ngomthandazo. Phambi sivule nje ngomthandazo mandiqale ndibulise ingqonyela ugqirha uMama uSisulu, isekela ngqonyela nenqununu. Umama Sonca, Jingalwazi Sonca, amasekela nqununu. Ugqirha uJaca kwakunye noNjingalwazi, uMaselesele. Inhloko zonke ke zamasebe, ndibulise izithwalandwe, ndibulise imfundimani zonke, ndibulisa otata nomama, umlisela nomthinjana. Ngegama likaKristu Yesu inkosi yethu, amen. Namhlanje phambi sithandaze sizawufumana isicatshulwa kwincwadi kaMateyu isahluko sesesihlanu ivesi ye-14 ukuya kweye-16. We are going to read from the book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 14 to 16. Ndizawufunda ngolu lwenkobe ke nto zakuthi naku ndixolela. Ifunda ngolu hlobo, nina nilukhanyiselo lwehlabathi. Umzi omi phezu kwentaba awunakufihlakala. Kananjalo abasibaneki isibane basibeke phantsi kwesitya, basibeka esiphethweni saso, sikhanyisele bonke abasendlini. Malukhanye ngokunjalo ukhanyiso lwenu phambi kwabantu, ukuze bayibone imisebenzi yenu emihle, bamzukise uyihlo osemazulwini. Amen. Nje phambi basithandaze ndingasho into kokuba nilukhanyiselo lwehlabathi. Bantakwethu njengoba nizawuphuma nigcwale ilizwe lakowethu, masihambe siyoba lukhanyiselo elizweni liphela. Ndingatsho into kokubana ukuba uthe wakwazi ukunceda noba mnye umntu, uluzisile ukhanyiso waze imisebenzi yakho yabonakala. Ndithanda laa ndawo ke ithi malukhanye ngokunjalo ukhanyiselo lwenu phambi kwabantu. Nani namhlanje beninyuka nisehla nihleli kweli holo kunzima, kodwa xa kunamhlanje imisebenzi yenu iselebreyithwa phambi kwabantu. Oko kukuthi xa usebenza nzima umvuzo ubonwa ngabantu. Masihambeni into zakuthi sihambe siyofundisa abantu bethu ukuba singancedisana njani na nezinto ezisijongileyo nezisingqongileyo. Namhlanje sijongene neemeko ezimbi apha amadoda ajike abuzilwanyanarha ebantwini ababhinqileyo. Ukhanyiselo lwethu ke yinto kokuba ukuba singaze sibe ngamadoda aphucukileyo nathethisanayo, asinawuthetha ngokukhuseleka kwabo kuba kwaseqaleni bebengekho sengozini xa kukho thina. Ndithetha ukuthi besinokwazi ukufundisa umlisela nomthinjana waseAfrika ngokusetyenziswa kobugcisa, ubunzululwazi esinabo, kuba uThixo usiphile oko. Mandigqibelise ngelithi niqhonqiwe nakhiwa zezimfundimani, hambani niyokwenza umzi kaXhamela ufike uvele ezizweni. Ndiye ndithi kuxhomekeke kuni ukuba eliziko mfundo laziwe njani ngabantu. Ubuhle balo nobubi balo buxhomekeke ekwenzeni kwenu. Uba nenze kakuhle kuyobuzwa into uba ubuphekwaphi, kodwa xa wenze kakubi kosoloko kusithiwa besimazi ubusukaphi. Masigqobeni intloko sithandaze. Uyinzulu yesimanga, uyinzulu yemfihlakalo. Owayekhona uThixo okhoyo nosawubakho, ungumnini into zonke, ingqangi, umvelelisi wempilo yethu. Yiloo nto Nkosi ekuseni sisiza sibhenela kuwe sisithi nanku umlisela nomthinjana wakowethu tsana nabantakwethu. Thixo wethu onamandla onke abathe bafumelela izifundo zabo, bancede ke Nkosi xa bephuma ze bayazi into kokubana Thixo wethu onamandla iintsapho zabo zijonge kubo. Sithi Thixo wethu onamandla onke uzibapha amandla, ubavulela ingcango, kuba utshaba lokuqala esijongene nalo kulo mhlaba simi kuwo yindlala. Ukuba Nkosi ubavulele amathuba emisebenzi, abanye baqasha abantu, siyayazi ukuthi ikati iyawusuka eziko. Yiloo nto sibhenela kuwe kubulihlathi ligwiba unguThixo. Uthe ukuba abakhi bathe bayakha indlu ungekho wena, bayakhela ilize. Wathi abagcini abathe basigcina isixeko ungekho wena, njengoThixo bagadilize. Yiloo nto sithi xa siqala lo msitho siwuqale kunye nawe. Uzibapheleke abantakwethu, ubapheleke oodadewethu bephuma bezawuthi sa kuMzantsi Afrika neAfrika iphela, kuba sinto esiyaziyo izisombululo zeengxaki esinazo elizweni zilele kwezi nkcubabuchopho ziqhonqwa namhlanje. Uzuko, imbeko, ubukhosi nobuhandiba sibubuyisela kuwe njengoThixo, egameni loYise neloNyana neloMoya Ingcwele. Amen.
Kingdom come, thy will be done on
Molweni. Dumelang. On behalf of the Chancellor, I would like to greet you all today. And I would like to recognize, on behalf of the Chairperson of Council and Convocation, Mr. Mngitwa, and on behalf of Council, Mr. Jahana and other Council members, both internally and externally. I would like also to recognize and acknowledge my colleagues at WSU, IMC members, including management. Allow me also to recognize and acknowledge members of the Student Representative Council with us today, parents and friends, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, our Mthatha graduating class of 2022. Congratulations, and I welcome you all. My name is Professor Rashila Nolundisonga, and I'm privileged to serve as the Vice Chancellor and Principal of this university when it stands at the precipice of far-reaching but necessary change. Likewise, it is an honor for me to serve this institution and the university community at large, but more on that honor later in this address. Today is a day of celebration. As I open my remarks, my main message to you today is about honor. The question I wish to pose to you all is, what is privileged? It is a question I pose against the daily rhetoric we hear in the media and from lobby groups. I would like us to explore it in the context of your lives as soon as you graduate and as a university with a future-looking obligation to those who will walk in your shoes across this stage for many years to come. To define privileged, we need to examine the meaning of privilege. Traditionally, a privilege is defined as a right, a special advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of persons. In essence, it is immunity granted as a peculiar benefit, advantage, or favor, and in the prerogative sense, is usually attached specifically to a position or an office. Using that logic, to be privileged means having or enjoying one or more privileges or not being subjected to the usual rules or penalties because of such special circumstance. Now, we cannot deny that privilege has had a certain historical meaning in our country. Still, I challenge you today to look beyond those circumstances, turn the lens on yourself, and examine your worldview and experience within the context of privilege. In so doing, I pose another question. Is education a privilege or a right? I am now entering into shaky ground, but for those who know me, you would not be surprised. There are two views on whether education is a right or a privilege in modern day usage. One view favors the opinion that a right is defined as something one cannot live without, and thus education, although ideal, is not a right as one cannot live without it. The second view, favored by our South African Constitution, is that a right or education is a basic education is a right. Admittedly, I have simplified the debate for this address today, but even in such a simplification, it is clear that both arguments have defects and salient points. Taking the first view that education is not a right because one can theoretically live without it, the question remains what the quality of that life would be without education. This may be a moot point in a country with excessively high unemployment rates for graduates and non-graduates. However, from my own experience and that of many of my colleagues on the stage today, I can tell you that life with education is privileged over one without one for one simple reason: choices. We have all heard the stories of people who succeed on an astronomical level despite a lack of education. However, we all know that these are few and far between, which brings me back to choice. The single inalienable truth of the educated is that you have choices to make, and those choices will lead to success or failure if not managed properly, and with the requisite skill or care. Education allows you the privilege of choice, something many of your forefathers were not privileged to enjoy. Turning to the second view, that education is a right, I must enter the fray and query whether that is a right when it's not equalized to ensure equal access to equal opportunities for learning for all. We must face the reality that we live in a world where, as Pluto put it, and I quote, when equality is given to unequal things, the resultant will be unequal, unquote. We cannot deny that access, funding, paucity of higher education institutions, supply versus demand, and many other challenges have resulted in the haves and have-nots in the higher education sector. Based on this argument, education may be a right, but what is the point of that right when such a right still results in privilege over necessity? I want to propose an alternative debate in which education is an honor. We are all honored by a chance to be where we are today. The honor of education is something that demands praise, respect at the highest level, both intrinsically and extrinsically. Honor demands recognition of importance of value, and it is ultimately grounded on respect. Within my education, as an honor theorem, I have to turn the lens onto Sisulu University, and with the support of my management team, we have begun to reflect on whether the institution is honoring the students we serve and the wider community of the Eastern Cape, South Africa, and the wider world. Our answer to this investigation is Vision 2030, which has taken an honest, incidentally deriving from the word honor, account of the strengths and weaknesses of the university, and it is committed to honoring its past, present, and future going forward. We make no secret of the recent difficulties we have faced with legacy qualifications and certain unscrupulous allegations made by the media. And those who were watching the news yesterday, I am sure you saw the CEO of CHE affirming our qualifications and saying, yes, there's still work to be done, but our students in those 5 legacy qualifications can continue with their studies. Those who graduated have no issues, and those about to graduate must also continue doing so. Still, we also celebrate and honor those who stood steadfastly by WSU as we faced and resolved those challenges. Have we, or do we still have a long way to travel? For sure. We'll make mistakes along the path, of course. However, we will not give up in the face of challenges because ultimately our role as providers of higher education results in the ability to make choices, strive for quality, and honor the institution which houses us. As part of the ongoing efforts, we will rationalize and consolidate this university in a manner that ensures parity of offerings and equal